Emily.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
I'll be edited out. Okay, so I'm going to ask you 3 questions about the small group, building block small group that we just saw. First, how do you determine your small groups? How do you group them?
So usually they're children that I think will work well together. That's the biggest factor. I think honestly, like it's always like a heterogeneous grouping, like and you know, sometimes I might pull a kid by themselves if I think that's what needs to happen. But yeah.
How do you use documentation or assessment to determine your small groups or your next bit of instruction?
So I actually really like the small group records that you guys came up with for the curriculum. Yeah, I mean, I had to like change the fonts and stuff, but in general, like I really, really like them because it gives a lot of space to kind of write, and it, you know, kind of makes them. It has boxes where you can talk about like who's kind of struggling, what are some possible enhancements you might do, what are some next steps. So I think that helps me to be a little more intentional, even if I don't necessarily like next week, you know, look at it. It's like the act of writing it down, I think is like so like powerful. I also take pictures to share with the children about what they've been working on so that they can remember, so they can share with each other kind of what their process was, because they'll listen to their friends, you know, a little bit more critically than they do to me.
And how do you use your paraprofessional or your assistant teacher with instruction?
With what?
With instruction.
With instruction. So actually, for the building blocks math circles, my assistant teacher, she usually does those. And so she has like a good sense kind of what's going on because she has to be prepared to do the circle. Though we'll collaborate, you know, I may suggest a book that she might want to read instead of, you know, something else, like some ways to supplement it. And so then I just kind of let her do what she wants to do. She kind of will like filter around and see what's going on. And if something seems kind of interesting, like she may say, I may ask her to go somewhere that like I really want, like the kids might need help, or that I really want them to work on.
Do you get a chance to plan with her?
Yeah, I mean, it's the Baldwin. So we have like a million hours on Wednesday to sit and plan, and we look through like the textbook and talk about, sometimes we have like a 4-week cycle and we'll look through like the next couple weeks and talk about like what the themes kind of are and what the expectations might be, because like sometimes we want the kids, we think the kids should be somewhere that may be unreasonable. I think that's a big part of our meeting sometimes. Is like, oh, well, you know, like they don't need to count to 32. you know, like for example. No, I mean, not for example, but you know what I mean.
Right.
So yeah.
Any other sort of general recommendations or advice to teachers around the small groups, scheduling, documentation, how you group them, especially for the building blocks, small groups? Anything in particular you want to let people know, or what's worked for you best?
Yeah, I mean, I think just being kind of flexible, like in general, I try to make it my own, you know, and really look at like what the purpose is, instead of just like the description, which is not always like super clear. And
Do you always have it as a separate math time, or do you ever have small groups during, say, centers or?
so we have a math table. But this year I made it math/puzzles because I didn't need a math table and a puzzle table. So sometimes if there's something that's particularly compelling, I may put a math activity as opposed to like a puzzle manipulative type of activity. But generally, since we have a separate math time, that's when like the small group stuff will happen. And otherwise, like it would be on the fly, and I might not like take notes or something.